and utilized as a tool. I think it's fantastic. Like I was saying, it's definitely sped up some of the processes that we do, especially my wife. Truth be told, she's really the brains of the whole operation on the back end, right? I'm the guy that likes going out and talking to people, building relationships. That's kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I'm good at taking tests. So I got the broker license, but my wife
Saw
is
that.
just so savvy on the back end with all the tools and stuff like that. And so I really lean on her. But what we were saying is, I don't know, I might eat my words here in a few years, but I don't know that real estate transactions will ever become fully AI or fully autonomous. You're spending so much money. How could you not want to talk to somebody and bounce ideas off? So the back of my mind, I'm like, I get that AI is cool, but like, wouldn't you want to have a conversation, like a legitimate conversation with somebody if you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars?
It's it's like you said, it's a tool in the toolbox, but it's just that, it's a tool. You have to use it. You can't not use it, I feel, in certain instances, because then you're just falling behind. You're not keeping up with the times. It'd be like not using a cell phone. Like, no, I refuse. I'm just gonna use the rotary dial. I refuse to use a
Correct.
cell phone. Like, okay, you might still make sales, but it's gonna be tough. You're not gonna be as good as the guy with the cell phone.
And there is a bit of flashiness that I think people want to see, and I jokingly laugh that I'm getting old enough to remember writing book reports on a typewriter. So like kind of that hybrid
Yeah.
era that came up with no computers and had to
Hey, I
you
I
know
love ChatGPT.
same
I'm a
same.
huge fan of it because it is exactly like we just talked about, and it helped me with this, our little, scripts, questions, things that you wanna go through. So, before we go too deep, what I'll do is I'll do an official kinda, opening here, and we'll just kinda introduce everybody to you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Ropes with Jeff Marsack, your host, where we take a deep dive into real pros, talking real and learning more about them, more about the real estate business and what is ticking out there in our Metro Detroit region here. So today we have Brendan Rosenberg. Brendan, say hi.
Hello, everyone.
And Brendan and I and his wife Olivia had a recent transaction together, and everything went fantastic. Had a nice closing couple few weeks back, and I told Brendan, I actually told his wife via email when I saw the Clubhouse Realty logo with the golf thing in there. I said I got to talk to these guys more because that's my world. I feel like sometimes I'm a terrible golfer, but I love golfing, so it's just kind of fits. So welcome, Brendan. I appreciate you coming on board here and having a conversation with us. We'll pick out some good clips here and share them out on social media, and I'll send those over to you and Olivia so you guys can do the same. But just wanted you to kind of take a moment to introduce yourself to those who may not know you guys and know your story. So tell me a little bit about your origin story and where you came up with Clubhouse Realty.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is awesome. I'm glad you're doing this because we need more of it in our world. Man, the origin story, huh? Okay. Well, let's see. So my formal background is in strength and conditioning biomechanics and was a college athlete, did all that stuff and got into the training, conditioning, all that. And so for a long time, I've been helping people battle problems that they couldn't, battle themselves and get in deep with them and really help solve problems is really what it comes down to. So right before the COVID thing happened, Olivia was looking for kind of a career change, and she ended up getting hired by a lady up here by the name of Wendy Patton, who is or was I don't know if she still is the principal broker, but was a broker at a KW up here. But she also runs or owns what they call the Michigan Real Estate Investors Group up in this area in Michigan, the Tri-County area, we'll say. And so she hired Olivia. Olivia didn't know anything about real estate. I had always had a semi interest in it, right? And my dad had always told me for years, like, hey, all the super wealthy people, they own real estate for a reason, kind of thing. And
Always
never
been
really
the
thought
case.
much. Always been the case, and we can dive into that later. But always had an interest in it. And then we went to buy our first house, and the transaction was great. Actually, my cousin helped us buy it, but I looked at Olivia and I was like, I feel like I could do that, right? And so it started there.
Hmm.
And this her boss Wendy really encouraged her to kind of dive into this world. And she's like incredibly successful, but also super generous with her time and knowledge and stuff like that.
They usually
And
go hand in hand.
they crazy, but that's true. So long story short, she was working there. I ended up on the back end, kind of in my free time, getting my agent's license. And wouldn't you know it, it's probably a year or two, maybe 2 years before COVID or something like that. And this like just by proxy, people, oh, you got your license? Hey, I'm looking for something. Oh, hey, right, because I had this huge network of people, right?
Right.
And
Some
so
people that
we
you were.
started. It was crazy, right? And I
Yeah.
started looking at this, going like, okay, we had. I want to say I probably did plus or minus 10 or 12 transactions my first year as an agent, which is relatively pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty good. Well, Olivia
And
kind of got,
this was around what year roughly?
like, we'll say this is probably 2018 going into 2019.
Pre-COVID years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly pre-COVID. Then Olivia was doing that. And then this other group that was an investor group got to know her. They were part of the Michigan Real Estate Investors Club, or that group, but fix and flip group ended up, I don't want to say poaching Olivia, but poaching Olivia to kind of help them run their fix and flip thing. And one of the requirements for her job was that she get her agent license. I
Mhm.
already had mine. So we asked them if I could, you know, initially list their houses when they got done doing the flips or whatever. And
Mhm.
I ended up, with Olivia's help, of course, I don't want to make it sound like she did. We ended up crushing it for her. We ended up, in terms of like getting them more money, handled the negotiations well, did a good job, was able to put deals together that inevitably fall apart almost every time. It's the fun part of the job.
Always.
And so it just kind of snowballed from there. And then we ended up getting into investing ourselves, where we would do either like private money, and now we're partners in a couple like apartment complexes out of state. So this whole world just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
The brokerage that I worked for, it was fine enough, but I did not speak on the phone to the broker once ever in the history of me being there. But to be fair, he had a great team. So if I called the office, they would answer. And, I don't know that it was particularly necessary. And it was a relatively big brokerage. Outside of email, though, I never talked to him. It was 50-50 on it. Like, hey, man, I feel like I'm making you a lot of money. Like, a high would be great.
Yeah. A little handshake. A
Yeah,
little.
yeah, whatever. It hurt my ego a little bit. No.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
So after a couple of years or whatever, I think it was 3 years, you have to have your agent's license. I kind of looked at Olivia and I was like, hey, I feel like, we might have something here. We're taking kind of all the things that we like. We're already helping a lot of people anyway. What if we could do this on the agent end for people? So I had a buddy who had stake in a different brokerage that he asked me to be the principal at, and and he was awesome. It was a great learning opportunity. But the conglomerate that was the governing body of that brokerage, I didn't feel that it was fair to the agent, because I could see all the numbers and the pass throughs and all that stuff on the back end. And as the broker, I didn't feel like they were doing enough for the amount of money that was being given to them. Beautiful back end, fine. But at the end of the day, the back end doesn't mean anything if the deals aren't coming through and we're paying an absorbent amount of money, right? So again, look to Olivia and go, hey, I think we can probably do this better, or at least in a different route, right? Where, we're not taking $20,000-$30,000 a year from every agent. And it's like, for what? Like, I think that's unrealistic. So lo and behold, Clubhouse Realty was born, where we kind of have this motto of, we are a brokerage for the agents, by the agents. Olivia and I are incredibly active. It's not something. In fact, this Wendy, Olivia's boss, told me, she's like, "You're never going to own a brokerage to be rich. You have to truly love helping people. Like, it just doesn't work like that." And she owns one of the biggest ones around here, quite honestly. And I said, okay, we're transactionally heavy enough. If we can cover our overhead and cover some of our time, that's cool. But I really wanted a spot that I felt like whatever commission structure the agents were paying, it was more than fair, if not too fair for the agents. But more importantly, education, because the amount of agents, and I'm sure you've seen this not only with LOs and agents, because you get to deal with both of us, that I feel mean saying this, but really don't have a clue as to how things are going on in the transaction, right?
Yeah.
When it
Yes.
comes down to how to be an asset to a loan officer, how to be an asset to the title company, how to be an asset to your client, how to be an asset to the other agent, those things I think get lost in translation sometimes, and it becomes just push it to the closing table, which ultimately fine is the end goal of everything. But there's a lot more nuance to being inside of a transaction than just slamming it down on the closing table, right? Here
Absolutely.
we are. Here we
Communicate.
are, right?
You got to have communication. You got to have, someone on top of things along the way. And, you need it to be a smooth transaction and a fun transaction for the client because what do we all want? We want referrals. We want to
Correct.
continue to build a referral based business. And if you smash it to the closing table, but no one had a nice transaction, they're not going to thank you the next time they want to list their house or buy a property.
100%. And it only takes one bad referral or one bad mouth of you to kind of put you in the doghouse for a little bit. And so,
So you
this
saw these agents out there, you realized a lot of them are just lacking in a lot of those areas. And hey, if we open our own brokerage, maybe we could guide them a little better than what you were seeing out there.
correct. And it gives us, because we're so transactionally heavy, and obviously any business is in business to make money. Whoever tells you that is to you. But it gives us a little more opportunity to put the focus on the agents. So we joined a couple mentorship groups that we give free education to our agents if they want to take it. Nothing is demanded of them.
Mhm.
But really, and hopefully you saw this on the back end with Brady, new agents, things like that. Like we're really instrumental in their deals if they need us, right? We're not leaving them
100%.
hanging.
100%. Brady was he would well for those who don't know, he explained the last transaction we closed. He was the actual listing agent or buyer's agent, which was
He was he was the buyer's agent.
he was the buyer's agent, but yet you and or Olivia were involved in every step of the transaction to the point where me as the loan officer handling the financing, I didn't know who was the buyer's agent because you all felt like the buyer's agents to me. You had three people looking out for the buyer, which is a heck of a thing to say because usually you get a buyer, the buyer's agent, and then maybe an assistant, and that's about it. But you guys had all of the above, so you guys really did an amazing job of keeping everybody in communication the whole time.
Well, thank you. It's always a team effort, and I do feel, and like as the broker, the theoretically, if we want to go that route, my client, right? So I do feel that responsibility
As
to
you
make
should.
sure that they're having a good time, let's say, or everything's going smoothly. And even on the people that maybe don't need my help or aren't so new, I still keep an overwatch of everything that goes on. I'm still very involved with the title company. If I can help, I will. Certainly, obviously, Olivia is awesome with that. Especially, she's got such a fine eye for all the weird stuff in title as well, because we work in the invest she works in the investing world so much that,
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of other
I mean, just
liens and issues coming up in that world.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. There's all kinds of weird stuff. So she's got relationships with all the title companies around here. They'll pick her phone call up, which I don't think people realize how huge that is. Yeah, so we and I don't know if you could tell, but we just kind of love doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I
we love
totally.
helping.
So then eventually, so bringing it back, you guys had this vision. You realized we can do this. We might be able to do it better, in our opinion, and help more people. So then, uh, Clubhouse Realty was born. So then that was then actually officially on the books. When then, roughly?
That was honestly last year. So we're coming up, I think, in March on our year anniversary. Honestly,
So brand new in the field, and as a brokerage again, and right now a handful of agents in the company right now.
7 so far.
That's wonderful,
Which
fantastic.
and I feel I'm not just trying to pump agents into the brokerage, right? Like it's not a do one transaction you're out kind of thing. We really want people to kind of take the long ride with us, if you will,
Mhm.
and help build our brand, if you will, right? So I don't want to say I'm, super choosy, but I do talk to people before they come in the brokerage. And I don't want to say it's by invite only because that sounds elitist, but like I want quality people that are in this, and I care more about who you are as a person, and we can teach you all the other stuff. Like we can teach you all the back end transaction stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, you need to know who you're working with, who's representing you and your name and your company, because let's face it, like you said before, you get one bad review, somebody says something bad, it reflects negatively on you, even if it's just an agent in your company. So you and especially as a new company. So I love that. So now with you, and so you kind of described how you and Olivia, your wife, partner, you are kind of the hustler out there in terms of bringing in business, and then she was sort of the like you said, the brains of the operation in terms of communication and all the nuts and bolts of a real estate transaction, which is great because you guys obviously are partners in business and life like that, which is unique. So how do you years ago, my wife and I were both in the same business, and it was tough sometimes because you'd come home and there was no break from business. It was kind of just business 24/7. So how do you guys handle that? Do you guys kind of like put a pause button on it, or are you still in that stage where it's just like we're just already talking business?
Well, we decided to make things even that much more complicated, and we have a 5 month old at home now.
Congratulations.
So that's thank you. So that's a great break from business talk when the baby's crying.
You can't talk to the baby about real estate.
Correct. It's honestly, it's there's really my wife is really, really good. I get on these tangents and these roles, and she'll whip out her phone and start taking notes. I hesitate to call myself the visionary of it all because we both have quality ideas that we bring to the table. But the overarching viewer, where like I'm trying to forecast in 5 years, I'll start rambling things off. She'll take notes, and she's like, "Brain dump." I'm like, "Yep, here we go." And so then we kind of make it a little more concise and try to figure out how we can engineer that. But again, we love what we do, and there's always things to do. So I hesitate to tell you that we ever go like hit the pause button on it. And we've been together long enough where you know we kind of realize like too much today. Okay, just like kind of tune it out for a minute and just hit the pause button. But certainly having the kid made that happen a lot easier.
Yes, no question about it. In terms of your office, nowadays in real estate and lending, there's so much virtualness to our business. For example, doing this, obviously I'm in Macomb Township, Michigan, and you're where are you? Where are you today?
Yeah, I'm in my home office, which
Yeah,
is in Davisburg, Michigan, which
Davisburg, out
is
out in the little more rural areas,
yep,
and
yep. Got cornfields across the street for sure.
absolutely. Yep, yep. Whereas I got Hall Road in front of me, so busy, busy. So, how do you have a brick and mortar? Are you guys more virtual in bringing in your people? How do you handle that?
We do. We have a brick and mortar office in Troy. However, we have been talking about moving to more of a virtual situation, and we don't really have any agents that like we have one that uses the office a couple times a week, but honestly, the younger kids like sub 35, I don't know that they want to be in an office. And quite honestly, I honestly tell people outside of somebody that's maybe been in the business for 20 years and like has that Rolodex of people where they're constantly working, as a new agent, at least in my opinion, you should be out meeting people, as we kind of alluded to earlier. Like your business is your referral, not your sphere of influence, right? So this is the other thing. I will never pay for a list for my agents to cold call people that every other brokerage on earth is getting that same list from the same company with the same names, the same numbers. To me, that is not sustainable. Are you going to get a couple here and there? Absolutely, just by law of averages and numbers pushing. But that is not a way to build a sustainable business, in my opinion. I think
It's not organic, that's for sure.
it's not organic. It's not organic. You should be out meeting people, like doing stuff in your community. Like big one is community stuff, right? Like you should be inside your community doing whatever you can to solidify that you're just a good human being and things
Charitable
happen.
charitable organizations, networking groups, chambers of commerce. The list goes on and on. Investment groups like you guys did. Look at what that led to. So there's so many potential ways to have communication with people out there, and being in the office is just not where it's at. So that's interesting. I was curious how that works because again, in our world, in the lending world, we more so have to have a brick and mortar for a lot of the back office staff, so to speak, but less and less are people in the office. And again, doing things like this with Zoom meetings with your clients and, phone conversations. It's not where it's at. And you know what? It's not bad to necessarily save a little rent either and be able to put that back
Correct.
in business, right?
Correct. And it's, I always tell them if we decide to do that, it's not like I'm going to take that and put it in my pocket. We've already budgeted for it. So hopefully we can turn that into another educational opportunity, a donation. My wife just set something up where we're going to make at one of the stores in Holly, which is kind of, we're right by there.
Yep, love Holly.
We partnered with a store called Alter Design, and we're going to have a charitable night where we make dog toys for the dog shelters.
Okay, okay. Oh, nice,
And
nice.
so just things like that, they go so far. And
And then
and
you can
honestly,
bring
if you
agents together at a function like that, and
100%.
that builds your camaraderie a lot more than just being in an office where Chuck's down the hall and Sarah around the bend, and you never really even see each other anyway. So I love that. That's I've got some young agents who have recently opened up brokerages, brick and mortar offices, and they're grasping with that situation of how do I build this out in terms of the modern real estate world. And it's more of that cafe style almost, where it's just like there's one office, and then it's more of just kind of a hangout place where maybe you can bring clients to if you need to, but it's not an office, not a traditional office setting. You rarely see those big offices with, rows and rows of private, offices at space anymore. And not to mention the agents don't want to pay rent, like they used to back in the day at a Remax office. You always used to have the Remax agents, man, they were big hitters. They had to pay rent to be in their office. And now they're like, I don't want to pay rent. Why would I want to pay rent?
I could not agree more. That is one of the things that I think we do have to transition to in terms of like using tech is like, yeah, this is going to be a relatively tech driven space. It already kind of is, but it's going to get more so. So it's how do you, again, back to it, how do we leverage that as a tool and not just a crutch? Because again, I don't care what anybody says, this is a personal relationship business. And if we can leverage the tools inside of the personal relationship, whatever that means to anybody, even better. That situates you, I think, not even like more of a professional, let's say, because not only can you talk, can you present, but now you also have this back end to really take some of the burden off your clients. I don't know if you guys, but like I don't know that I've had anybody hard ink anything outside of closing in years. Everything's e-sign.
Everything's e-sign now. And it's funny you say that because we've recently transitioned on refinances to full virtual closings. So I just had my first one last week because we've used hybrid versions of it, but we've never done a full virtual. I had never done a full virtual, but basically the husband was at work. He came online and e-signed on his phone, and then a mobile notary pops up to make sure that they're who they are. So they show them their license and confirm who they are. And the mobile notary is available 24/7. And I'm also on the Zoom call with the client as the notaries having them e-sign their documents. So mom was at home. She just had a newborn about 5 months ago. So she was at home, he was at work, and we closed the loan up, and nobody had to coordinate to go to a title company, to have a title closer come to their house, and to be, taking time off work and to, do all this type of stuff. So the AI, the technology, it's, as we discussed earlier, it's a very important tool to make you that much better of a realtor or a lender or anything in business nowadays, because it just is a great tool to have that we've never had before. I mean, like you said, there was days when you had to bring people into the office to sit down and go over things with them. And that's just not the case anymore. Have them sign listing agreements or have them sign purchase agreement. You had to meet with them. Now you put it all in DocuSign and you send it off on its merry way, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great tool. It's a great tool. Let's transition back over to Clubhouse Realty. So because again, I just dig that. So where'd you come up with that? Golfer, or where'd that
Oh yeah.
come from?
I'm my wife probably tell you I'm too huge into golf. I mean,
Aren't we all? Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, I know. And I'm still not even very good. I'm still not very good at
No,
it,
no, no.
but
Just because, a lot of people say, Jeff, you are really into golf and you golf a lot. You must be really good. And I just kind of laugh,
yeah, right. I was like, you understood how hard that is. So, on the nose, so to speak, we kind of picked it. with respect to like, the amount of golf stuff, golf theme. That's my kind of jam, if you will.
Yeah, your world. Yeah.
But beneath the surface, maybe a little more deep, to me, the clubhouse is the spot where I've had some of the best times of my life hanging out and getting to know people, breaking bread kind of thing. And it's usually the spot where everybody, in terms of real estate wise, a spot where everybody in a community would go, or they have a pool, same idea, breaking bread, swimming, having fun, getting to know the neighbors. So, again, on the surface, golf for sure. But a little deeper, like clubhouse is a spot where everybody meets, man. And that's just kind of what we
True.
wanted to build,
I love
those
that.
type of people.
I love that. You are so true. That is so true. It's coming from our perspective as golfers. Yes, there's that, clubhouse for golfers, but you're right. The clubhouse is just some place where everybody goes to break bread, to tip some back, and just everybody's always in a pretty jovial mood too when you're in the clubhouse. So that's kind of a nice feeling too. So I love that. In terms of the clientele that you work with, do you find yourself kind of gravitated more towards listings or more towards buyers? I know there's always a mix, but how do you personally see yourself in terms of what you go after?
you know this is backwards from what most people will probably tell you in our world. A lot of people really like to be the listing agent, and I understand that. And they're highly coveted. You'll hear people talk about how highly coveted they are, and I'm not saying that I don't like doing it, but there's something about it where I like getting the boots on the ground and going to walk through houses. And again, this is probably because what we do with investing, the amount of houses that Olivia and I have walked through to invest in is staggering at this point. Everything from, my God, we should be wearing a hazmat suit to some of the finest stuff on the lake, right? So I feel like, Olivia and I, myself, I'm highly qualified to some degree to like give you a little more in depth analysis as to what we're looking at, or point out some things, or talk about some value situations that you might have backwards in your head, right? And I'm sure you deal with this too when you're looking at appraisals and stuff. It's interesting to watch the investor, what they value in terms of house, call it house value, versus the retail person buying a house and what they put their value, like why are they spending their dollars? Is it paint color? Is it fixtures? Is it this? Versus why is the investor spending their dollars? Like what are they looking at? And
Hmm.
so with the retail folks, I try to get them in that mindset of, and I love doing this. Okay, listen, I understand that you guys are going to live here, but this has got to be treated like an asset. And because this is an investment, you are spending an ungodly amount of money for the next X amount of years. So even before we start looking at houses, I generally ask them, like, are we into this? Is this like a 1 year plan, a 3 to 5, 10, 15? Because that's going to really determine what we're looking for. Are we willing to do
Extremely
work? Like,
important.
yeah, are we willing to do work? What are you comfortable? What work are you comfortable doing? What work do we have to hire out? Because all these help me kind of help you decide what we're going to look at to even start.
Guide them a little, and that's your job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
And with your
so
background and the knowledge of the investment properties that you've dealt with over the years, I would think that's a huge strength that you have to be able to show them this is all really pretty, but here's some bigger ticket ROI items that are really going to be able to be great when you purchase this home. Because if you put money into this, boom, all of a sudden your value's increased and you're feeling pretty good about your position now in just a year or so.
correct. And like we just kind of went through it on our deal without getting too specific about it, but there are some high ticket items and we were able to use those as leverage to, I think what do we get, like 50 grand off the ask price, or so? It was close to that, 30, 40 grand off the ask price, right? And there were some comps that probably supported close to that ask price, but we were able to negotiate and leverage some of those things.
Yeah, that was a great deal for the buyer. He was very happy.
Yes, hopefully so. I feel
Yes.
like we did
He
some
was.
work for him.
He's an engineer, so those engineers can be a little tough to work with sometimes. So, but it
We'll
takes
leave it
all.
at that.
Yes, it takes all types, no question about it. Well, speaking of the market, and you just alluded to it, you got a good deal, we'll say, for that client. What are you seeing out there right now in terms of the Metro Detroit region? In terms of, everybody's always asking, are prices coming down? Is there a crash coming? What's the deal going on? What's inventory levels like? What's your take on that as of the end of 2025 here?
So my take is it's kind of normalized. If people can remember pre-COVID times, it's kind of normalized back to what I would think that the typical 1 to 3% appreciation. And this is the thing, and I know you probably deal with this too. When I get asked that question, sometimes I'll joke back, what street are we talking about and where is it? Because street to street, sub to sub, mile road to mile road, it could be wildly different as to what we're talking about. But let's say in Oakland County, it's still homes are still appreciating, right? I haven't seen anything that's like, oh my goodness gracious. Now, if you break that down month to month, you'll see some influx month to month of things, but overall the line graph is still going up, right? And it's not the 10% during the COVID years, but that's not sustainable for any market. It's normalized. And I still think there are deals to be had. And I think right now there's still inventory out. There's still people that are looking for homes. There's still good homes that are for sale. What I think is happening, and you have a great eye on this, is people still want to list their homes at COVID prices. And when we break it down for them, where, if we're talking about the average, like we're talking the 30 to 40-day mark right now, generally, it's a little more nuanced than that. But then if you look at the median, it's like 10 days, 12 days, right? And the way I look at that is the median's factoring out the extremes and kind of going right in the middle of everything. That means when a home is priced appropriately for the market, you're only going to sit on that inside of a month, which is pretty good. That's pretty good in the real estate world.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good.
If
Normal. It's normal.
it's normal, it's normal. If we decide that we're trying to ask top dollar and be at the top end of the comp or above any comps that we can legitimately pull, it's probably going to sit. And, I'm not even going to tell you that you might not ever get that, but understand that it's like the relationship of like every month that goes by is another mortgage payment, is another utility payment, is another this, is a possibility for something to go wrong, is a possibility of this. And so like, what's it worth to you if we're trying to squeak out another 5 or 10 grand and we could have,
Sold it 3 months ago.
it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, correct. So there's still good deals to be had on both sides, on both the buyer and seller side. And it really comes down, in my opinion, to on the sell side, the listing side, comes down to strategic marketing and having a really, really solid plan, even down to if we have to make a price drop, what day do we want to make the price drop? What day do we want to enter the market? How do these photos look? What angles are we taking them from? Is this a property that do we have a huge 10, 15 acres that we want to put a drone up and do that? Like, how intense do we want the marketing? Like, all these little things in different pockets of our area make a difference. You don't have to do it in some, you should absolutely do it in others. And I think the more experienced agents kind of know that. They know where they need to spend the marketing dollars. They know where they need to spend their time, staging a house, not staging a house properly. Like, all these little things come down to the price and how long we're going to sit on market.
And it's like you said, you got your, as those of us who have done this for a minute, we know there was a pre-COVID market, there was COVID, and now it's post-COVID, right? So it's like we all wanted to get back to that pre-COVID market where things were more balanced. That's a word I like to use with a lot of people when they ask about, what's going on with the market. So we're trying to get back to a balanced market where there's plenty of buyers and there's plenty of sellers. And the nicest home wins because, there's competition and you want to, you know, make sure that people have enough homes to look at. And if they want to spend a little more for the nicer one, great, go for it. But too many people, like you said, still think that they can, get that 20% annual appreciation over the last year or two. And it's just like, no. But even the deal we just had with our recent client, although you got that price down from what it was listed at, if we looked at the price back in 2018 to what the deal was today, it's still an upward movement. It was
Mhm.
just a little below where that guy wanted to sell it for at this time. So did he get a smoking deal? You could say he got a deal. He got a deal compared to what it was listed for, but it was also still a deal for the seller because they probably bought that home back in whenever, and the homes have gone up in value a ton over the last number of years. So you got to take all this into account and not get too worked up about what your neighbor sold their house for 18 months ago. That's just not today.
Not today.
It's just not today. And then it gets down to a conversation. And it sounds like that's what you definitely do, which is good, is to really have a deep conversation with that seller and try to understand really what the full motivation is on why they're selling and what their timelines are. And You can't just, like you said, shove a listing agreement in front of them and tell them to sign. You got to get into it a little deeper, or it's going to be kind of a tough situation for you as time goes on. And they keep asking you, Brendan, why hasn't the home sold? Why do we got to reduce the price? You'd rather have all those conversations up front, obviously.
You got to create the proper expectations,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Under promise, over deliver kind of thing. And like it bothers me, like, especially on the other side of the transaction. And I'll never badmouth another agent. I'll never badmouth another seller. But it does frustrate me sometimes when, like, we'll get in a transaction and I'll go, well, didn't you tell your seller that? Or didn't you tell your buyer that? You probably should have. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. You don't work for me. But like, also, these are things that I thought were customary, or whatever they were.
I assumed you would have told them about that.
Yeah, right. You didn't present my offer. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so
No, no. So as we're kind of closing out 2025, looking into 2026, on the lending side, obviously the talk is of interest rates, and we're saying, hey, our rate's going to drop, and that's just the constant drumbeat right now that we're hearing, whether it be for folks looking to buy or people looking to refinance. Should I wait? Should I wait? Our rate's going to drop. I'm sure you're hearing a lot of the same, and I would assume, like many of us that are knowledgeable about the market, we often tell people, if you're ready, let's go. Don't count on something that you don't know what's going to happen in the future on. If you're prepared now and you've been pre-approved with a good lender, you're comfortable with your numbers, you're out there and you're seeing homes, that fit what you want. Don't sit on the fence, just get out there and start looking. Will rates come down next year? Will the new Federal Reserve Board chief come out and drop rates substantially? Who knows? I mean, it's just, there's no guarantees in life. And I follow this on a daily basis, and I'm still not seeing any prognosticator talking about rates dropping into the fours. Like, that's just not happening. I mean, might we see a five in front of interest rates? Absolutely. I see it now sometimes a little bit, so I mean, there's not a dramatic enough impact coming our way in 2026 that should cause anybody to say, hold on, time out, I'm going to wait until the spring to buy. Get out there and start looking now. Are you hearing a lot of that drumbeat from people?
for sure. Well, I want to see if the rates come down. And I'm like, so you're going to wait until the house is more expensive? Because again, over time, even this past year, it's still the price of a house is still going up. So, okay. And then like you were saying, or let's say the old adage that the best time to buy real estate was yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's held true for however many,
Generations.
yeah.
Generations.
And granted, it's not the same as when my dad bought a house or his father bought a house, but it also is with respect to like the price is still going to go up. And, obviously I defer to guys like you that are a little more into, like, obviously I pay attention to that kind of stuff, but that's the basis. That's a huge important factor in what you guys are doing. So I kind of defer, I consider you guys the authorities, let's say, on kind of planning that. But I tend to agree with you where like, I highly doubt I would say ever, this year we're going to see a 4 in front of an interest rate. It just, in my mind, if we do, that creates this artificial boom again. And if we're really trying to prevent a collapse of the market, I don't know that we can sustain another artificial boom I don't know anybody can sustain with the cost of living and how everything's going to the artificially inflate, let's say, the price of homes another time inside 5 or 6 years. I mean, pretty soon you're going to have to make $30 million a year to afford a house. And it's just, we need inventory to be exchanged. We
Yes.
do.
Yes. And that's the talk. Of course, over the last number of years, as people bought homes, there was always the adage of, you know, marry the house, date the rate. That's still true. If you're feeling like you think rates are going to come down, wonderful. Buy now, and we'll refinance you in a year, and you can take advantage of the rate then. But you know what? Like you just mentioned, as rates come down, traditionally values will creep up a bit, and I say creep, specifically because I don't see any, huge increases, but yes, they could potentially creep. And then we have other options in the lending world to save people money all over the place. You can do buy downs where the seller helps contribute to get that interest rate down. You can, you can do where you pay to buy the rate down. There's adjustable rate mortgages. There's all kinds of tools out there. And that's what keeps getting floated is the 50-year mortgage. And we just rolled out, or we're actually about to roll out, a 40-year interest only DSCR loan. So this is only for investors. So
Okay.
it's not a primary resident, but for investors, as you know, with your background, they're all about cash flow, right? They just want to make sure that that cash flow is there and that their ROI is looking good. So they're going to be rolling out this 40-year interest only DSCR loan. For those that don't know, the DSCR loan is a debt service coverage ratio loan, which means we don't care about your employment, we don't care about your income. We only care about what would be the rent that would be generated on that property compared to the mortgage payment. And that's all they look at when it comes to approving a client. So that's another interesting product that we see rolling down as 2026 unfolds. But lots of products that are going to be coming around, and that's where it's important to work with professionals like you and me, because as we have these conversations with folks, we unearth what's important to them, and then we kind of then can guide them the proper way. Because if you don't have a conversation with people, you don't know what the right answer is to their questions, because you never asked the question. You got to ask the question to get to the right answers. Otherwise, if you're assuming, we all know what the first three letters of assume are. So we don't want to be that. Well, I thank you so much for coming on board here. I know we got to get you out, because you got to get out and start showing some more homes, I think, soon out in the cold, which as a side note means there's serious buyers when it's 28 degrees out. That means that these are serious people that are out trudging around in the cold in Michigan here. But I thank you, Brendan, with Clubhouse Realty. I'll put some links in my YouTube bio on Brendan and Olivia and their team. If you're looking to make a transaction, definitely reach out to them. If you're an agent who's looking to potentially have a conversation about changing brokerages, which happens all the time, reach out to Brendan too. He can have a conversation about what they offer there and go from there. So again, I appreciate your time. Merry Christmas, Brendan. Tell Olivia the same. And if you guys need anything, I'm always here for you.
Thank you so much for having me. Merry Christmas to you as well.
Absolutely.